Thank you, Jennifer. Good morning to everybody. May I say, dear colleagues, and in particular, fellow budget fans, because one has to be a fan to talk about budget, but it's something, I think, probably the most important thing, because finally, as you know, the budget is politics cast in figures, and that's why it is so important to exchange how the budget should like, what are, so to say, the forecasts, what are the expectations, what are the needs. But as you said, rightly, Jennifer, the situation has dramatically changed from last year to this year. We are facing now a war which was triggered by Russia against Ukraine, and which is also a war against our European values. And this has made it very clear, with the new international security architecture, we need to strengthen indeed Europe's role on the global stage, standing at the side of our Ukrainian friends, in particular what we have heard today in the morning about further attacks on different cities across Ukraine. And so it's necessary to reassure them that there will be further support, there will be predictability of our financial support immediately, but also when it comes to the reduction. Because all this is something which is definitely, again, triggered by Putin, and what he has caused is indeed a situation which affects the entire world. He weaponized the plight of millions, not only Ukrainians, but in particular Ukrainians. They are seeking refuge. We, the Europeans, fear the energy bills, and not only we, the Europeans, many people around the globe. And additionally on top, many families in other regions are even facing hunger. As European Union is an ever-evolving union, we need to learn and improve with every challenge we face. We did so during the pandemic, when our budget, together with Next Generation EU, invested in the future, in a greener, more digital and resilient Europe. And we will also emerge stronger now, indeed, as a geopolitical Europe. Therefore, it's time to discuss with you the role of the EU budget and how can we ensure the necessary means to cater for the needs of the hour, including leading the support for our Ukrainian friends. How can we improve our ability to act and our strategic autonomy? And how can we reinforce Europe's international role to maintain our European way of life? Drawing lessons from previous crises, let me bring three elements to start our debate. First, funding following foresight is our starting point. Second, a forward-looking budget needs to be also outward-looking. And third, Europe's security is indivisible and thus needs a common approach. Concerning the first, the current energy situation is a striking example to illustrate why foresight is key. It proves that we were right to put the green transition at the heart of our action and our budget. Facing the current crisis, the Green Deal is more important than ever. Every single solar panel, every wind farm, and every other green investment becomes an effective instrument to counter Putin's energy war. By scaling up key green technologies, we will make our energy cheaper, cleaner, and safer. Our budget's green investment is thus an investment in independence and in the future of our continent, but also of our planet. Already, European companies benefit from being a frontrunner in the green transition and by developing new technologies so we can inspire others and set global standards. The current challenges also show that the forward-looking budget needs to be also outward-looking. Again, the green transition is a good example. If we want to become the avant-garde of the twin green and digital transition, it's evident that we need raw materials, lithium for batteries, rare earth-based permanent magnets for wind turbines, and electrolyzers for hydrogen, to name just a few examples. While our demand is rapidly growing, we are depending on one or very few countries. Drawing lessons from our energy situation, we need to strengthen our independence and thus widen our network of strategic partnerships. But we also, and this is something, so to say, where we have to address ourselves, it's about exploiting, for example, existing lithium potentials, mines in Europe. And there is a lot apparently available which could make us, at least here, independent. But it's also on us to have the political strength, courage to make this possible. All this is a matter of urgency, a matter of preserving Europe's ability to act, a matter of European strategic autonomy. The current long-term budget dedicates almost 20% to policies that are relevant for Europe's strategic autonomy, such as digital policy, space and research, more than ever before. As we are the most internationalized continent in terms of trade, this does not mean protectionism. We are committed to openness and multilateralism, and we can use this approach also to defend our legitimate interests and ensure a level playing field. Charles de Gaulle once said that countries have no friends, but only interests. While some countries seem to take these words too serious, we can do better. We can strengthen our sovereignty by embedding our interests in a partnership strategy. Cooperation with like-minded partners is more crucial than ever, and we need to reflect this approach in our budget as we did with the Global Gateway, which allows us to support development in third countries based on values and based also on a strategic approach. The Global Gateway 150 billion euro investment package is a good example. It supports the twin transition, sustainable growth and education. At the same time, it proves we keep our promise, in particular to our African partners, despite the additional challenges caused by Putin's war against Ukraine. And finally, Europe's security is indivisible. Therefore, we also need a common approach for defense. Our strength as a soft power depends at the end of the day also on our hard power. The European Defence Fund, with nearly 8 billion euro in our budget, reflects this need. It supports competitive and collaborative defence projects throughout the entire cycle of research and development. And this is only the beginning. As you might know, for the first time that we have a dedicated defence budget in our MFF. Doing more together will save resources, allow interoperability and support our European innovation. European defence funding underpins our role as a global player. Let me add some words on the specific situation in Ukraine and the role of the EU budget. The situation of the war in Ukraine today is different from what we have assumed in May of this year. The realities on the ground are that we are facing a prolonged situation of turmoil without a clear end date. The recent decision of Russia for partial mobilization has, unfortunately, aggravated the situation in this respect. The current situation has two important implications for the Union support. First, a short-time relief will need to continue for a longer period of time than we initially hoped. Ukraine needs 3 to 3.5 billion euro per month as relief support to keep the state functioning. And long-term reconstruction efforts on the European Union level to be delivered by the rebuilt Ukraine facility have now a more longer time horizon. And here the latest need estimates from the World Bank amount to around 350 billion euro. At the Union level, the provision of short-term relief to Ukraine in the form of macro-financial assistance has so far been done on an ad hoc basis, with important provisioning and national guarantee requirements. In view of the continued need for short-term relief, a more structural solution could be contemplated to allow for higher degree of predictability, and I'm working hard together with our member states to find a solution which allows us to provide in a structured, predictable and automatic way the necessary financial support, at least for next year. But very importantly, whatever we have to do, it should be also already a bridge towards the long-term reconstruction phase once the circumstances for this are in place. Our budget is currently under heavy pressure, no doubt, yet it has great potential to strengthen Europe's global position, even under the challenging circumstances we are facing today. At the moment when our continent is at the crossroads, this conference comes very timely, because only if we make the right budget choices today, we will have good political choices tomorrow. Therefore, I am grateful that a group of young Europeans helped us to prepare for today's conference. A warm welcome to those of you who are joining us today in the context of the European Year of the Youth and far beyond. Your contribution is very valuable, because the decisions we are taking today is what you will face and experience in the future. And that's why it is important that you are already involved in the decision shaping and ideally even making. So your presence reminds us that we need to act now to safeguard our future power and potential. And if we want to have a powerful geostrategic Europe, we need to empower our European budget accordingly. The war at our doorstep should be our wake-up call, or as the writer Max Frisch once said, a crisis is a productive state. One just has to take away the flavor of catastrophe. I hope that we can, with our engaged discussions today on our common European budget, contribute to building a stronger and more resilient and therefore geopolitical Europe. Therefore, I am looking forward to listening and exchanging with you today, and I wish you an inspiring budget talk, and therefore I hand over to President von der Leyen, whom I warm-heartedly thank for her keynote address. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Hahn, dear Gio. Ladies and gentlemen, in recent months I've been to Ukraine several times, but hardly any visit has left a bigger impression with me than the one to Irpin, near Kyiv, 4 weeks ago. In Irpin, a school destroyed by Putin's bombs has been rebuilt with an air raid shelter funded by the European Union. Because in today's Ukraine, schools are only allowed to reopen if they are equipped with these shelters. And for me, there can hardly be a better example that our budget is about more than numbers. It is a reflection of our policy priorities and, of course, of our common European values. And increasingly, it is also Europe's most effective crisis response tool, especially during the last few years. It is thanks to the European budget that we were able to procure safe and effective vaccines for Europeans and millions of people around the world. It is thanks to our budget and Next Generation EU that Europeans are investing in their sustainable and digital future like never before. And now it is also thanks to our budget that our Union is able to support Ukraine's heroes in their courageous fight against Putin's aggression. Together with member states, we have mobilized more than 19 billion euros for Ukraine so far. Of course, this is just the first step, and we need the international community to step up its efforts, because this support is needed to keep the country running, to pay pensions and salaries for doctors, police, the armed forces and teachers, for example. So you could not have chosen a better time for a conference on the budget for more geopolitical union. I'm delighted to be with you today, and I want to use this opportunity to share some thoughts about how our budget can help us achieve both, making our union more resilient and delivering even more effectively for citizens. Europeans in the last years have seen what a difference our budget can make. Take energy. With Next Generation EU, we put the European Green Deal at the center of our recovery. And when Putin invaded Ukraine, we doubled down on this decision. With Repower EU, we will invest up to 300 billion euros to accelerate our transition to renewable homegrown energy. And this is not only good for the climate, it also helps to get rid of Russian fossil fuels and thus our dependency. And it creates thousands of quality jobs for Europeans in tomorrow's economy. With our budget, we also invest in initiatives like the European Batteries Alliance and the European Chips Act. Both initiatives are very successful. Thanks to our budget, soon 2/3 of the batteries we need will be produced in Europe. And the first chips gigafactory will break ground in the coming months. So with our budget, our union is staying ahead of the curve. We are making our union more resilient. And at the same time, we can walk at the side of citizens during life's trial. From the fight against climate change to common defense projects, there are many good reasons for doing more together as a union. I'm sure we all can agree on that. However, resources and flexibilities are extremely limited. Our budget has not been designed to deal with multiple challenges at this scale. It was decided on in 2020. And many of the challenges we face today, like Putin's war, emerged only afterwards. In addition, inflation is at 10% and cutting into the purchasing power of our budget. So if we want to continue to use the EU budget to provide common responses to common challenges, we need to reassess. The MFF review will be an opportunity to do this. The Commission will explore options to ensure our financial response fits our new needs which emerge from a new geopolitical situation and a new economic environment. And of course, in this endeavor, we're also interested in listening to your ideas. This is especially true for the input of our younger participants, who will present their views of a more geopolitical Europe. Together, we need to make our budget fit for the challenges of today and of tomorrow. And I thank you, and I wish you a successful conference.